Hello everyone, my name is Roya and today I will be telling you about the 4 books that I read in the first half of May. So I did only read 4 books and I do apologize that none of them are adult fantasy. I know that a lot of you guys, obviously since mostly what I read is adult fantasy, of course some of you guys probably are like expecting that from me pretty much continuously, but unfortunately, so I do apologize that there's no adult fantasy in this wrap up, but in my wrap up at the end of the month there will certainly be some. So anyway, I had a really good reading month. I think everything that I read was really good. And was diverse and or by a diverse author, so that's definitely a plus. The first thing that I read is The Stevens Thorny Way by Kat Winters, and while I didn't like this one as much as Odd and True, because Odd and True was just so incredible and how metaphorical it was and whatnot, this still was really amazing. Kat Winters continues to impress. This is about a biracial girl named Hannah Lee back in 1920s Oregon, and if you don't know, Oregon was pretty much the most like crappy state to be in as a person of color just historically. I mean, Oregon may be a really awesome place now. I mean, I've been living here since like 2007. It's a great place. I love Portland, all that stuff, but historically, Oregon was like the last one to do away with the hatred towards people of color, all kinds of stuff. It was just really crappy. So basically, Hannah Lee's father, who is a person of color, was killed 2 years before this starts, and she doesn't really know exactly who is responsible. She kind of thought that he just got hit by a car, when actually that happened after what killed him really happened, all kinds of stuff. So she becomes unraveling this really crazy just kind of chain of events that happened, and the KKK is involved, and there's this dude who is a gay boy in that time, and he's hated as much as she is, basically, and it's really shitty. And so there are some very terrifying things in this book, and it's just so dark and so well researched to the point where you kind of go, how the heck did this kind of thing ever happen? So I absolutely loved this book. It was so interesting, such a great read, and I highly recommend it. I highly recommend Kat Winters overall, even though I've only read 2 of her books. Next, I read Timeless by Alexandra Monir, and I was expecting this to be like kind of cool or something, but I didn't expect it to blow me away the way that it did. So seriously, how are more people not talking about this book? So this is about a girl named Michelle who has been raised by a single mother in California, and her mother is estranged from her own parents, who are like bigwig fancy people, fancy gazillionaires and whatnot. So one day her mother dies in a car accident, so Michelle has to go and live with these crazy grandparents, and she doesn't know what the heck she's supposed to do. She has to move all the way to New York, she has to go to private school, but she discovers a way to travel through time, and she doesn't really completely, not all of it is explained because this is the first book. So really, the book that holds a lot of the answers is the second one, which I have not yet read. So this story really thrives on keeping things from the reader, which is great. And it is billed as a romance type of thing, like a time travel romance, but honestly, the romance is a very, very tiny part of this story. And while the romance did move very quickly, it was not a very big part of this story at all. So really, a lot more of this story is about her going back in time, discovering who her ancestors were, and because she comes from such a crazy family going way back through all sorts of colorful characters. So I really liked that part of the story. This was so well researched. It goes through all sorts of different time periods, all of that stuff, and like I said, it does such an incredible job of keeping things from the reader. You just keep wanting the answers to, and when they are given to us, we end up with more questions. So I'm very excited to read the second one. Next, I read one of the arcs that I got at Y'all West, which I'm still so amazed that I have this book and that I met the author, all this stuff. So this book was every bit as incredible as I thought it was going to be. It is about a girl named Lulu who is biracial. She has an Iraqi dad and an American mother, and she is one very cutthroat character, my god. So if you guys remember, if you've read When Dimple Met Rishi, there's this whole part where she throws iced coffee in his face. this chick would have done that so much faster for so much less. Like, she pushes a dude into a pool for basically nothing. Like, he did not deserve it. So of course she suffers consequences for a lot of the things that she does throughout this book, and comes out a slightly nicer version of herself in the end. And actually, her behavior, sort of like her personality in this book, reminded me a lot of my sister's teenage years. They were very much the same kind of teenager that Lulu is in this book. It's really funny to me. And Lulu has this group of friends. She has 3 best friends. They've been friends since they were like in middle school, like 11 years old or something. And throughout this book, I kept reading it and going, do these girls even like each other? Why are they friends? That makes no sense. But then by the end, it's basically, you realize how much they have taken their friendship for granted after being friends for that long. So events of the story sort of end up tying them closer together, so they are rediscovering that friendship. And I just thought that was so interesting. So this is a very feminist book in a lot of ways, and it's a very incredible friendship story. I mean, we don't get to know her friends as much as we get to know her, but in a way it's basically about their friendship, and it's just really incredible, and I really enjoyed reading this. And finally, my least favorite book of this month so far, but I still really liked it, I just didn't think it was as good, was The 100th Queen by Emily R. King. So this follows a girl who has been raised in sort of a sisterhood. Like, she's basically a nun, but not really. She's like a warrior nun, I guess you could say. So basically in these nunnery type things, men who kind of are like rich and stuff come in, and they choose one to either be a concubine or be a wife or whatever based on how well they can fight each other. And I mean, I thought that was a little bit fucked up, because I am just so sick of fantasy where men like rule the world, and I always kind of expect something more along the lines of women overthrowing the men. I did enjoy this story a lot, but I did feel like it was full of tropes and just so predictable. I mean, every once in a while something would happen that would make it totally, that would jump out at me as totally not predictable at all, but most of the story was very formulaic, and the kind of thing that I'm used to seeing in YA fantasy. But don't go into this thinking this is YA. This is not YA. Just because the main character is 18 does not make this YA. Don't mistake this for young adult, because there is definitely some stuff in it that not every young adult wants to read. So just so you know. So these are the books that I read in the first half of May. Let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are, etc., etc., and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!